Picture the Persian Gulf at midnight, a silent, eerie graveyard of steel. Massive supertankers, the lifeblood of the global economy, have dropped anchor, paralyzed by the thunder of U.S.-Israeli airstrikes lighting up the Iranian coastline. This isn't just a distant skirmish, it is a direct assault on your bank account. In just 7 days, the American wallet has taken a haymaker, with gas prices surging a staggering 14% in a single week. As of this Saturday, the national average didn't just rise, it slammed into $3.41 a gallon, a level of volatility we haven't witnessed since the dark days of 2023. The stakes could not be higher. We aren't just talking about a more expensive commute to work. We are talking about a total inflationary breakdown. From the diesel fueling the tractors in America's heartland to the jet fuel powering global commerce, the cost of existence just went up. This is a geopolitical standoff where the collateral damage is the American middle class. While you watch the numbers spin at the pump, the White House is making a cold, calculated gamble. President Trump has signaled that if gas prices have to skyrocket to achieve military objectives in Tehran, then so be it. Is this the price of national security or an avoidable economic suicide mission? As West Texas Intermediate crude explodes toward $91 a barrel, the divide between the elite's foreign policy and the citizens' daily survival has never been wider. If you want to understand the hidden mechanics behind this crisis and see where this escalation ends, you need to stay tuned. Before we dive into the data, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. In a market this volatile, being informed is your only leverage. Let's break down the chaos. We are watching a sudden and severe shockwave hit the American wallet. In just 7 days, pain at the pump has skyrocketed by a staggering 14%. As of Saturday, the national average slammed into $3.41 a gallon. The trigger? Global crude markets are in an absolute panic, flashing numbers we haven't witnessed since 2023. This is the direct, undeniable economic fallout spilling over from the ongoing U.S.-Israeli military strikes inside Iran. The AAA Motor Club is confirming the damage. This is the steepest surge we've seen, putting gasoline at its highest peak since 2024. But it's not just your daily commute getting hammered. Everything from aviation jet fuel to the diesel powering our agricultural and supply chain sectors is surging in cost. And the root cause is entirely geopolitical. The Persian Gulf is effectively paralyzed. The massive tankers that normally ferry oil out of that region have dropped anchor and refused to sail, essentially severing the globe from a full 1/5 of its total oil supply in one fell swoop. The market reaction has been brutal. By the time the bell rang on Friday, West Texas Intermediate, the U.S. crude benchmark, had exploded by over 35% for the week, closing out at a punishing $90.90 a barrel. The lion's share of that massive gain happened on Friday alone. And here's the historical reality check. The last time crude sat at this altitude, data shows regular unleaded breached the $3.80 mark nationwide. Of course, the pain isn't distributed equally across the map. While the raw barrel of oil dictates about 60% of what you pay, state taxes, distribution logistics, and refining margins create a wildly uneven landscape. Out in California, drivers are getting fleeced at an eye-watering $5.08 a gallon, the most expensive in the Republic. Meanwhile, folks in Kansas are managing a much lighter $2.90 at the register. So what happens when the shipping lanes finally clear? Prices might stabilize, but the financial bruising is already done. Wayne Weingarten, a top economist over at the Pacific Research Institute, spells it out clearly. He warns that even if this is just a short-term, 2 to 3 month spike before prices retreat to baseline, it violently squeezes household budgets. You don't just erase that. The shockwaves to the broader economy will leave scars long after the pump prices cool off. But the commander-in-chief? He is entirely unfazed by the market turbulence. Sitting down with Reuters this past Thursday, President Trump made his calculus crystal clear. The military operation against Iran takes absolute precedence. If the American consumer has to eat higher gas prices in the interim, he is willing to tolerate it. His exact stance? The prices will plummet when the mission is accomplished, and, in his words, if they rise, they rise. For the administration, neutralizing the threat abroad completely eclipses a temporary spike at your local station. Now, energy analysts will be the first to remind you that the Oval Office doesn't possess a magic dial for global oil markets. They do, however, have a panic button, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, armed with a 714 million barrel capacity. We saw President Biden tap into this exact stockpile back in 2022 to artificially blunt the commodity fallout from Russia rolling into Ukraine. But the SPR is a band-aid, not a cure, and certainly not an economic cushion. As Weingarten sharply points out, that reserve was built strictly to keep the military and government running during a true, catastrophic national shortage. If Washington tries to use it just to play financial whack-a-mole and smooth out market trends, the tool is fundamentally insufficient for the job. The dust may eventually settle in the Persian Gulf, but the economic scars are already hardening. As economist Wayne Weingarten warns, even a temporary 3-month spike creates a violent squeeze on household budgets that doesn't just vanish when the tankers start moving again. We are looking at a permanent shift in consumer confidence and a potential cooling of the entire U.S. economy. The strategic irony is palpable. The very strength projected through military force in Iran is creating an internal domestic weakness that could haunt the administration for years. Looking ahead, we face two diverging paths. In one scenario, a swift military conclusion allows prices to plummet, as the president predicts, though the Strategic Petroleum Reserve remains a dangerously depleted band-aid rather than a structural cure. In the second, more grim scenario, the Strait of Hormuz remains a choke point for months, forcing the U.S. to choose between its geopolitical ambitions and a full-scale domestic recession. We are testing the limits of the American public's patience, and history shows that if they rise, is a dangerous mantra for any leader facing an electorate at the pump. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve was never designed to play market whack-a-mole, and using it as such may leave the nation's military depleted just when it needs fuel the most. What's your limit? At what price per gallon does foreign policy become too expensive for your family? We want to hear your predictions in the comments below. Is this a necessary sacrifice or a strategic blunder? If this analysis helped you make sense of the chaos, share this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories the mainstream media misses.